2023 Tableau PublicTUG. We're here to answer the questions, why did you do that? How did you do that? And the most important question of all, how did you make it look so good? Today, our hosts are Priyanka Debal. Morning, Priyanka. And Ant Pulley from London. Both are Tableau Public Ambassadors. And myself, Eric Howard. I'm a Users Group Ambassador again this year. Our guests today are Serena Purslow in our Community Spotlight. Brian Moore will demo his dog breeds Viz of the Day, and Nicole and Oana will show their climate financing Viz of the Day. The agenda goes something like this. We'll kick it off with Serena in just a moment. Then Priyanka will host Nicole and Oana at 12:15. And then we'll finish the presentations with Ant and Brian at around 12:45. And we'll wrap it all up around 1:15 with some swag drawings and some Tableau news. So stick around. So let's get started. Serena is a Tableau Alteryx consultant at the Information Lab. She's very active on Tableau Public and has one Viz of the Day so far. It's an email campaign dashboard using fake data created by Macaru, and as of this morning has 27,000 views and has a nice modern layout. Check it out. I'll post the link in the chat. And let me stop sharing. Welcome, Serena.
Hi.
How are you doing in London today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. A bit cold. The weather's not great.
Well, it's overcast here too, but I'm not going to complain. We need the rain here in Nashville. So let's get it kicked off. What did you do before you started at the data school?
School? Before I started this current role, I was actually an English teacher in Spain. So I was teaching children from the age of 2 until 18, so quite a range. But I'm now teaching adults how to use Tableau, and I much prefer teaching an adult class, not just because of the behavioral issues I had with children, but I'm teaching something I'm more passionate about as well, which I think makes a huge difference. And then before I was a teacher, I studied international relations and statistics at university. So that's kind of where my love of data came from.
So that drew you to the class at the data school. How did you find it and get involved with that?
Yeah, so I was looking for a role that would just bring me more back into sort of data analysis, basically. And I was really lucky in that the first thing that I looked at basically was the data school. And I thought it sounded like a great opportunity. You get sort of 4 months of training and then get to work in different sectors on placements with different clients. So a really great opportunity to learn. And before that, I'd actually never heard of Tableau, but got to work using it for my application, and very quickly fell in love with the tool. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind since then.
Did you use any other tools during the class that I guess stuck out or got familiar with?
Yeah, so our classes were focused on Tableau and Alteryx, but I've also been using quite a lot of Power BI as well, to sort of just see the similarities. But I am fully heartedly a Tableau girl, much prefer Tableau to Power BI. But yeah, I've used a bit of both and a bit of SQL as well. But most of my time I spend in Tableau because that's my preferred tool.
I feel the same. I'm just like the way the Tableau interface is over Power BI. Even though I do a lot with Excel and I guess Power Query, but it's just much easier in Tableau. So when did you begin publishing to Tableau Public?
Yeah, so The first thing I published to Tableau Public was actually my application for the data school. So part of that application process is they want to see how passionate you can be about a tool and how much you can teach yourself. So I spent ages creating this data sort of visualization, and that was the very first thing I posted. I look back at it and I didn't really like it, but good to see how far I've come. I think my use of green and red was quite garish. But yeah, and then since then, sort of, I started getting involved with community challenges, so Makeover Mondays, Workout Wednesdays, and then eventually started sort of building some of my own sort of more personal projects.
Well, I know your profile on Tableau Public is chock full of community projects, Makeover Monday, Workout Wednesday, and all the others. You're doing a gangbuster work there. So, do you have a favorite project you've worked on so far?
Yeah, so I recently did. It was actually just a Makeover Monday, but the reason it's my favorite is because the week before I basically done a Workout Wednesday by Erica Hughes, which was like a map drill down challenge. And it took me quite a while to get my head around like the set actions and how to sort of configure it. So when the Makeover Monday for the next week came out, it was for like global energy use per capita around the world. I was like, this is a great opportunity. I can sort of put that map drill down into play. And it was the first time that I think it was a bit of a milestone for me because it was the first time I had created something without using a blog. Like I'd really sat down, thought about how I wanted my set actions to work, thought about how I wanted like the clicking actions to sort of function, and I'd actually worked that out all by myself, and I felt just quite proud of that. So it was a nice milestone, and I'd say that's probably my favorite project so far.
Cool. Well, AI is all the buzz right now. Have you used AI to do or to help you create any vizzes?
Yeah, I've used it a little bit. I err with caution because it slightly scares me. But when I created my email campaign viz, actually, I couldn't find any suitable data for it, so I went about creating the data myself using Mockaroo. But I used AI, sort of Chat GPT within that, because I was sort of trying to work out what fields I needed, what KPIs I might want to feature in such a dashboard. So I spent quite a long time on ChatGPT asking it questions like, if I was like someone working in an emails campaign sort of role, what KPIs would I want to see? What metrics would I be interested in? And sort of used it to help form my data set.
That sounds interesting. I've used it a bit, and I guess it's similar to Tableau in that you can get into Chat GPT, and it's like using the ask it simple questions and get answers back, and that's sort of like using the help me button that'll just create a bar chart for you. But if you really want to be
Yeah.
really good at it, you've got to keep at it and sort of hone those questions to really create a really good prompt.
I
So
think, yeah, there's a skill in asking
there's a
prompts and
skill in asking it and getting it to do what you want. So what's
yeah.
your favorite Tableau shortcut?
I think the one that is my favorite, or at least when I found it out, I was like, oh, that could have saved me so much time. Is just copying and pasting formatting. It's a really simple one, but one that I think when you're sort of creating, for example, lots of KPIs and you know you wanted them all formatted the same way, it's a great shortcut to just copy and paste that formatting from sheet to sheet. And I definitely use that a lot.
Cool. So, final question. I know you've only been publishing to Tableau Public for about a year now. So, was it a big surprise when you got your first visit of the day? And how did it feel?
Yeah, it was a big surprise. It was really exciting. I think I spend a lot of time on Tableau Public and looking at all the sort of inspirational visits that people do, and it's a very inspiring community to be part of, and seeing like how much amazing content people make. So then to sort of have that marker of that, oh, I'm really part of this community and being recognised for some of the things that I've been producing was really exciting and something that I hadn't necessarily expected to achieve when I started using Tableau. So yeah,
It's a really great looking dashboard. I'm not
thank you.
surprised you've won, and I expect to see many more from you, like we have from Brian and the rest of the crew today. So,
I hope
thanks
so.
for being here, and yeah, hopefully we'll have you back on to demo one of your visits soon.
I'd love to. Yeah, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, Ant, are you ready? Or excuse me, Priyanka is up next. Priyanka
Yes.
and Oana and Nicole.
Yeah. 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 I think. Yeah. Thanks for that, Eric. Yeah. Before we get with the Viz, I'm excited to introduce our next two speakers, Nicole and Oana, who are already very known in the community. A quick introduction about both. Starting with Nicole. Nicole is a database developer at ABT Associates. Her background is in psychology, which is interesting. I didn't know that. And prior to working in analytics, she worked at a community inpatient children's psychiatric hospital. Her visits tend to focus on mental health, equity, and participating in Biz for social good. She loves rock climbing. Great, that's great. Spending time with her family and Doctor Who. So the last part is not a surprise for me, Nicole. I would have guessed. I've seen your profile. I know your current Viz is also a Doctor Who Viz of the Iron Viz entry. Moving on next to Oana, she is a data image enthusiast and people analytics database specialist at Red Hat. She's passionate about structuring and visualization of data. She started using Tableau 7 years ago. Wow, that's a long time. And it was in higher education. Her first Tableau public viz was created for association at American University Data Exchange Iron Viz competition. Emory University placed second in that competition and she was top 10 for Iron Viz 2022. She has received 2 Viz of the Day so far and already been nominated for 5 Vizzy awards, which is great. The Viz that they're presenting today is, in fact, has won the Sustainable Development Goal Data Viz Project Challenge. So we are excited to be getting to talk about this Viz today. So with that, Nicole, Oana, take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So yes, as mentioned, I'm Nicole. And yes, I'm really excited for the Doctor Who episodes coming up this month. I'm also a Tableau visionary and Tableau public ambassador and Atlanta Tableau user group leader. So I do a little too much. Pass it off to Oana.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you for having us today. We're excited to speak to you about our climate viz. Nicole and I really enjoyed working on this, and it's really awesome to be here today to share with you. Nicole, will you please move to the next slide?
I'm trying. There we go.
I guess we've already introduced ourselves, so the next one. So we wanted to share some fun facts about us. Nicole and I have known each other for a little over 4 years. We met when Nicole joined my former team at Emory University, and we connected very quickly. We both really loved how much Tableau transformed our work, so we bonded over that, and we became quick friends, and got to know each other better and continued to be great friends, still hanging out. And we started collaborating on Tableau Vizes in spring of 2021. We worked on the Dolly Parton storybook for the Atlanta Tableau user group Iron Viz. After that, we participated in the Women in Analytics Data Viz Challenge, and our most recent collaboration was for the Viz for Climate Change, which is the Viz that we will discuss today. So I am going to talk about our Viz inspiration, share how we got to our data sources and the data prep we did, and then Nicole will show you how we build a Viz in Tableau and share some tips and resources for collaboration. So our motivation behind this Viz was a data Viz challenge. Tableau Public teamed up with the SDG Viz project, which stands for Sustainable Development Goals Viz project. This challenge was around the 4 goals of the climate change conference that took place in fall 2021. The 4 goals were mitigation, adaptation, collaboration, and finance. And for those of you who are not familiar with the SDG Viz project, it is a project that focuses on raising awareness and reporting and really creating a space for people to get involved through data visualization in the 17 sustainability development goals that were adopted by the United Nations. So this challenge is one of the ways in which the SDG Viz project is doing that. And I will share a link in the chat, the link to the Viz gallery, so that you all can check out the other amazing Vizes that were submitted for the challenge. So the challenge was got us started. We both felt really interested and passionate about this topic, so we decided to collaborate on it. And we had a month to complete the Viz. So we started reading on the topic. We both come from academic backgrounds, so we came at this with a research mindset, and we read article after article. This is a screenshot of one of the pages of links to articles and data sources that we reviewed. So we each gathered links to articles and data sources, and we put them in this Google Doc. We added our notes, and this is how we worked together to build our story. And after reading many articles and meeting over Zoom many times, we narrowed it down and decided that we wanted to show where we are in terms of financing and what is at stake. So out of the 4 goals, we decided to focus on financing, since meeting the financing goal is crucial to meeting the other 3 goals: adaptation, mitigation, and collaboration. So once we narrowed it down to financing, we were able to then pull even more articles specific to financing climate change. And this is when we learned why there are not a lot of data visits, but also a lot of easy to understand articles on the topic, because this is a very complex, complicated topic and is not tracked very well. So we continue to do our research. We realized how complex it is. We had a long list of questions, and we knew that to tell the full story and to tell a clear story, we really had to answer all of those questions, such as how urgent is this? What exactly are we doing about it? How is the financial support distributed? Where is it coming from? Is climate change affecting different populations differently? And many other questions. And we felt that it was important to really address all of them in order to truly cover the financing goal. So that was a real challenge for us. But to answer all of these questions, we pulled a lot of data from the World Bank, but also we manually built data files with information that we pulled from the articles, whether it was just text in the article, or maybe if we were lucky, it was available in a table or a chart. So we didn't have to do much data prep and data manipulation. The real work was in building the data sources. The most data modeling we did was for the map, which Nicole will show you shortly, where we combined a map with a bar chart and linked it with lines. And for that, we used and pretty much step-by-step followed one of the Thurledge twins guest post with Wendy Shigia. So thank you to the twins and to Wendy. So collecting the data and understanding the data was the real challenge for us. And once we got that out of the way and we had our questions outlined, we were able to go to Tableau and start organizing our story. So Nicole is going to show you the viz and walk you through how we did that. Thank you, Nicole.
Of course. I'm going to see my fun Bevy screen share, and it's refreshing. Hold, please. All right. I love Bevy. Okay, good. That's you can see. So this is how the viz finally turned out after all of that research and all of the reading. As Oana mentioned, we really wanted to touch on all the various aspects and fit it into 10,000 pixels because that's Tableau's max. The first thing that we did was, do some mock-ups, and we're going to show one of the befores, the images that we have. But as we were playing around, kind of the first thing was layout and colors. So we knew we wanted to go darker mode, so it's black viz. And then we wanted it to come across more as a journal article. So, we've done all this research and we've done all of these reading of articles. We were like, okay, let's lay it out like an article. So that was why we decided to go wide instead of a typical tall viz. When you go wide, I really love the look of wide vizzes, but you do run into some additional challenges. Mainly, you can't really go much more than 900 pixels tall, which means that you're really scrunched for space, much more so than if you had gone long. So that was one of the design challenges that we went through as we were going. The next step was organizing all of these hundreds and hundreds of pages into the outline. So you'll see throughout the viz, we kind of broke our sections into these questions. So there's so much information, there's so much text. How can we really focus the user? And we're like, all right, we're just gonna tell them in a single word what they're looking at. So the first section was what? After the introduction. We're data viz people. We love data viz. So we wanted data viz kind of, the visualizations to really be the focus of it. So we put them everywhere, including in our little header. Scroll. So with most, articles and such, the first thing that you want to focus on is why should people care? Like, why should people keep looking at this 10,000 pixel viz? So we started with, what is climate change in that background? So setting the scene and just showing, just the changes that have been happening over the years. And beyond just the temperature change, things like the greenhouse gas emissions and the cost, because again, we are really focusing on that finance piece, because the finance piece is going to allow countries to have the money to mitigate greenhouse gases to help reduce their emissions. So why care about this? Why should you keep reading this viz? And why did we choose the finance goal for this viz? So the piece with the finance goal was the developed countries have promised to raise at least $100 billion each year to help finance support in developing countries. And the reason for that, we showed visually, was, the developed countries have much higher emissions, but they're not feeling the extreme weather to the extent that the lower income countries are, the developing countries. And so we just wanted to say, like, this is why it's so important to be financing on these changes. And because of, money, bottom dollar, every dollar investment does yield $4 in benefits. So it's like it makes sense on both a humanitarian level, but also on a financial level. The other fun thing with wide vizzes, as I try to center this, is when you go long, it's a lot easier to kind of have your chapters showing on a screen at a time. When you go long, so when you go wide, another consideration you have to do is try to get each chapter to fit into one screen, which we just barely did on this one. The Sankey was created with a template from the Flurlage twins. And just going through and saying, okay, so how does financing work? Let's show y'all visually, instead of one of the articles was like 100 pages. of financing, let's show you visually. It starts with the countries, the different kind of funding, where does it go, and then who does it go to? And then finally, what does it finance? Does it finance mitigation, which is dealing with the effects of climate change that are happening now, or adaptation, which is like being able to kind of future-proof for future climate change events. And showing that even though we have this goal, there is a huge gap between the goal of 100 billion and where we're currently at, which is 72.9 billion. The next step is where. So we kind of showed in the beginning that we had these, the developing countries were really experiencing the brunt of it. So we wanted to see, okay, is the money going to where who needs it the most? And so this is the map that Oana was mentioning, that we used another template or another blog from the Flores twins. Shout out to community members. Like, there are blogs for everything. So if you can dream it, you can build it in Tableau. And that's what we had a lot of fun doing. And playing around with the maps in Tableau to get, kind of the non-default, non-standard maps so that it really flows well with the viz. Since most of this was journal article, kind of wanting to look like a journal article, there isn't as much interactivity, but we did bring some in here to see, so you can see kind of where the various metrics are. Yes, Tableau Public animations are paused. Who is going to benefit from this? Because, we get a lot of very big picture news about climate change and how it's affecting, the world, but it's not proportionally affecting, or it's not affecting everybody the same. And so part of it is adaptation, this idea of this adaptation gap. So the Paris Agreement called for balancing adaptation and mitigation, but most go to mitigation. And so we wanted to show, the different areas, the different areas are getting funding in different measures. So most of the funding is going towards mitigation, but in Oceania, it's going to adaptation. And it's because, again, these different areas are affected differently, so they're using the funding differently. But overall, we're still funding mitigation more than adaptation, which is a problem. And we wanted to just focus that with a chart that's a little more eye-grabbing. Also talking about, who it's affecting, it does affect women disproportionately. And so showing that, like, even though climate change is affecting women disproportionately, when you look at the boards for these groups that are providing finance, most of the board members are men. It's not currently, except for the adaptation fund, it's not really currently 50% men, 50% women. And so that is causing some of the funding that we don't even have the full 100 billion of to be distributed unequally. So we want to make sure that, it is 50-50 as well on these boards of these finances, so that, sorry, something popped up, so that the funding can go to who it needs to. A big thing with data viz for me is, like, if someone has made it to the end of my viz, I am very grateful for it, and I'm hoping that they're really excited about whatever the topic is, and that they want to do something next. So I always want to be sure to end with a call to action. So Oana and I went through and we found like these charities and resources for people, so that, if they read this, they're like, yep, I need to learn more. Yep, I want to do something. How can I do it? All right, next, what can you do? Here you go. And just a way to wrap it up. As Oana showed with the research page, all of these, move my mouse. These are all of the articles that actually made it into the viz. So just tons and tons of research went into it, and hopefully was condensed well enough for people to understand and want to do more. I'm going to play with my screen sharing again. All right. So how did we get to this final viz? And also I apologize with the way my screens are. I can't see the chat, but I will definitely be looking at it afterward. So a huge part of this viz for us was getting feedback. And so, we're getting feedback from each other as we collaborate, which is just such a fun process to begin with. But then we also went to office hours, which I co-host with Michelle Freeman and Zach Geis. And we originally, this top one here was originally what our viz was going to look like. This is all built in Figma because we didn't version control very well. So I don't have an actual older version, but I have the Figma files of what we mocked up for it. So originally we again had wanted this magazine layout. We had it both tall and wide. You would have had to scroll in both directions. And one of the pieces of very valid feedback we got was people only want to scroll in one direction. So either have them scroll sideways or scroll up and down, but pick one. And then also, some thoughts on color, keeping it more consistent. So as we iterated through, we were able to take this before and turn it into the viz that not only won the competition, but was viz of the day. And we also were so fortunate that it hung in the Tableau Public Viz Gallery at Tableau Conference too. So definitely, feedback is something that is so crucial to learning and to growth and to creating these vizes. So for me personally, you can always reach out, but we also have these opportunities through community challenges or through the office hours. So as Juana shared at the beginning, we've collaborated on 3 vizes now. We absolutely love collaborating, but it does have some of its own challenges. So some tips we kind of put together as we've gone through this process: schedule calls with each other, especially if you are collaborating with someone that you don't know super well. Maybe you met them through the community. Meet the people, figure out who they are, figure out the various levels of expertise. Everyone will have a different design eye, and, just kind of talk before the process to figure out if you actually want to go through with a collaboration, but then also making sure that you talk throughout it so that it doesn't kind of fizzle off. There are so many amazing examples of collaborative vizes in the community. And so I'm hoping that everyone that starts one, ends with it because they just turn out amazing. Make sure that if you do enter into a collaboration, you select a topic you both enjoy and want to research, because you can spend a lot of time on the research part and you want to make sure you're actually having fun. Be able to communicate available times and timelines. Juana and I mentioned, we had worked together. We both live in the same general area, so we didn't have to deal with time zone differences, things like that. But, if you collaborate with someone in different time zones, this available time and timelines becomes even more critical. Creating a collaboration kit. So for us, it was Figma, because that is a software where you can collaborate together. And then Google Drive to store all of our documents and everything else, as well as the Google Sheets for the data sources so that we both had access to everything. There are a lot of different ways you can, share information and collaboration. So just creating that, it will really, get this effort off to a good start. And then finally, establish how you will publish and share the viz. If you collaborate, you worked on it together, and you want to make sure that both people are comfortable with how it is shared and disseminated as well, and that both people are included on it. So I'm going to leave this up for half a second because this is it. But we have a blog post on tips for collaborating if people are interested. And then I have the Viz Collab project, words, up and running, where if people are interested in collaborating on a viz, you just sign up, you fill out a few questions like, what are you interested in? What's your availability? And I try to match people up so get some more of these great collaborative vizes up and going in the community. That's what we have. Thank you all.
Well, Nicole and Oana, I think that was an extensive process. Everyone on the chat would agree with that. Not just the research, I can see that would have taken a lot of effort. I do see one question from Ant here. How did you manage to, manage this file and work together? Because you can't collaborate at the same file, right? You have to go back and forth.
Right. So we use Tableau Public for part of it. And so that would be where the lack of version control comes in. Make that part of your collaboration kit next time. But we would make sure with Tableau Public, you can publish visions that are hidden. And so we would publish a viz up and hide it so no one else could see it, but we would share the link with each other, be able to download the viz and work on it, re-upload it so that the other person could have access to it. Figma is another part that we used a lot because you can collaborate together in Figma. So we tried to lay as much out as we could in Figma and really just build it in there so that we could be working together. And then the final part of just like plopping in the vizzes happened in Tableau.
That's a great advice. And I think many of us here won't be aware of Figma. So is it, for folks at the call here, is it tough to learn, or would you say it's maybe a quick process?
I thought it was pretty quick. Juana, what did you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty intuitive, and it's one of those things that you kind of have to be in there and have the need to do something to learn. I tried to watch some videos to learn it before we started using it, but until we got in there and had to use it, I didn't really get the hang of it. But I would say it's pretty intuitive. I'd also want to add to what Nicole said about how we managed to work on the viz at the same time. That communication was key. So in addition to having Tableau Public and Figma, which were crucial, of course, communicating and always letting the other person know what exactly you were working on was also very important. So that if you were working on something really big at the same time that the other person was messing around with colors, we didn't have to do a lot of work the next day to come back together.
Yeah, that's a good point. And how long did this whole project take for you to complete, from the idea till the publishing part?
We only had a month because that was how long the challenge ran. So this one was done in a month.
Okay. And do you think the research took more time, or the actual building dashboard part?
Oh, the research for sure. Yeah, just reading all of that and getting the outline together. Once we had the outline, we're like, all right, we know we want to do this really cool map. A sand key works really well for this. But it was that research beforehand that took the most.
Great. I think I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. I think we are early, so thank you both for the presentation. I very much enjoyed the whole process, and I'm personally a fan of wide vizzes. But this is the widest I've seen, so but still a fan of wide vizzes.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you. All right, back to you, Ant.
Thank you very much, and thank you both. It's good to hear your collaboration tips. I'm currently collaborating with Jessica Moon on something I think is on the call, so I think we'll take some of those tips forward.
That's great. So, I can't wait to see that one. Sorry, that one came through BizCollab, by the way. So
BizCollab. It's more of a Jessica's doing everything, and I'm occasionally throwing an idea in, but I'll try and rectify that. But thank you very much. So yeah, really looking forward to the next guest, Brian Moore. Those of you in the community probably know him already. He probably doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway, just so anyone who doesn't know him knows who he is. So Brian is a data viz and analytics practice team lead at Clear Intelligence. He is a Tableau visionary and a Tableau public ambassador. He also co-leads the Boston Tug. I'm hoping I'm getting all this right, so just shake your head if I'm not. And co-writes a blog with Jackie Moore called Do More with Data. That's right. Yeah. And current numbers are, as you referred to me earlier today, 9.5 visitor days. The half being a collaboration you've done with Tina. I think we can call that 10. That's a nice round number. So very excited for this presentation. I'm a big fan. I'm always commenting on Brian's work as an inspiration to me personally. So really look forward to hearing you talk about your dog breeds visit the day. So I'll pass over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, give me 1 second to share my screen. All right. Hi, everybody. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be presenting at the Tableau Public User Group. For anybody that does know me, I'm a huge fan and huge advocate for Tableau Public, so I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I'm going to just skip over this introduction slide because I think you covered everything there. Yeah, thank you for that. The viz that I'm going to be sharing today is called Related Dog Breeds. I published it back in May of 2023, and it was selected for Viz of the Day on June 2nd. This viz lets users explore the genetic relationships among, I think, about 150 modern dog breeds. And by genetic relationship, just mean breeds that share common genetic variants that indicate that they had a common ancestor. For the data modeling, I used Alteryx, obviously used Tableau for building the visualizations, and then also used a little bit of Figma for some of the labeling. And like pretty much everything I've ever built on Tableau Public, I went through a bunch of different iterations before landing on a design that I was finally happy with. So I'll start with just a really quick demo of the viz. So in the main chart, right-hand side here, the large circles represent clades, which are groups of breeds that are similar in appearance, behavior, and like geographic origin. The small circles are individual breeds within that clade, and the size of those small circles just represent the number of breeds that they share these genetic variants with. So users can either select a breed from the parameter up here in the top right, or they can just click around in the chart and click on any of these nodes, and it'll highlight all of the breeds that they have a genetic relationship. Some text down here at the bottom left that populates just with a little bit more detail. It lists out all the breeds in the clade and outside of the clade that they're related to. Yeah, so that's about it. There's not a whole lot to it. It's pretty much just one interactive chart. It was tricky to build, but it's still just one viz, but it is pretty fun to explore and click around. So the inspiration behind the viz, I really wish I had a good story for this. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. I hear people all the time say that they have just so many ideas for vizes and not enough time to work on them all, but it is the complete opposite for me. So I'll have one good idea, I'll spend days, weeks, even months building it, and then I might go another 2-3 months before I have another idea. But sometimes I just want to build something. I'm inspired to build anything, even if I don't have an idea. So I usually go out looking for inspiration, and a lot of times that starts with just a Google search for fun data sets. And that was the case with this one. Did a quick search for fun data sets. I came across one of the listicles that had 20, 30 fun data sets. And one of them on there was about dog breeds in Germany. And I wasn't really interested in that particular data set, but I do love dogs, and it got me thinking about doing something with dog breeds. Initially, I thought, it would be really cool if you could do like a family tree for dog breeds and kind of trace their ancestry back through generations. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find that exact data set for that idea, but searching for that data did bring me to an article on cell.com that had some cool visualizations about relationships between dog breeds. And best of all, the data was available for download and it was free. So that's always good. Before we continue, I should probably take a minute to introduce my dogs. On the left is my dog, Rusty. He was a rescue. He is some kind of mix, but we have absolutely no idea what breeds he might be. But he is adorable, and he's just an amazing little dog. And on the right is a puppy that we are picking up in just a few weeks. Don't have a name picked out yet, but it's a Bernedoodle, which is a mix between a poodle and a Bernese mountain dog. So really excited, a little bit nervous about that. All right, so back to the data. So in that article, there were a bunch of data visualizations. Here are just a couple. So the one on the left does a little bit of what I was trying to do initially. It has some lineage information there, but that data wasn't available. And then the chart on the right is showing the relationships among different breeds, which is built using the same data that I ended up using. So as I started building this, I had a few ideas that I wanted to try out, and as usual, none of them really worked out as well as I had hoped, but they did spawn other ideas. So first, I tried to do a packed bubble chart using the Circle5 package in Python, and with some work, it probably would have looked pretty cool, but it really only showed how many breeds were in each clade and how many breeds those breeds were related to, but it didn't really show which ones they were related to, which is something that I really wanted to highlight. So then I tried building a Sankey chart to show those relationships, but with 150 breeds, that got really messy, really fast. Probably would have had to go more than 10,000 pixels wide to show them all. So I abandoned that one pretty quickly. Then I thought about doing a traditional chord chart, but that's basically just replicating the visual from the article, and I really wanted to do something different. So eventually landed on this idea of building kind of a multi-level chord, so kind of a chord chart of chord charts. So I could highlight the relationships of breeds within the same clade, which are very common, but also highlight the relationships outside of the clades, which are much less common. My initial design had all of the lines visible, but as you can see, it's just way too busy, pretty much unreadable. Can't really gain any insights from that. So finally decided to make it just like a fully exploratory interactive visualization. So let the users select a breed that they're interested in and see all the other breeds that they're related to, or just let them click around in the chart and do some exploring. So that's kind of the path that I went down from my initial idea to what I actually ended up building. And that's a pretty typical path for me. I'll start with an idea, or if I don't have an idea, I start by searching for an idea. I try some things out. Those things don't really work, but they spawn other ideas, so I try those out, and eventually I find something that I'm excited about and keep working on. So for this viz, as you can probably guess, I did have to do a fair amount of data modeling. I would say more so than most of my vizzes. The raw data that I downloaded from the article was just this giant matrix that had a row for each breed and a column for each breed. And then there was a value at that intersection for the number of haplotypes that they shared. So as I mentioned before, I used Alteryx to build the data source. I probably could have used Tableau Prep, but there were a few things I wanted to do that were just a little bit easier with Alteryx. The first step was to pivot the data. So instead of having that massive matrix with a row and a column, I pivoted that so I had a row for every combination of breeds, and I was able to eliminate all the ones that didn't have a relationship. Then the kind of the meat of the workflow, probably the next 40 or 50 steps of the flow, were just to position the circles. Normally I would do all of that math in Tableau, but for this specific use case, there were a few things I needed to calculate before bringing the data into Tableau. One of those things, something I really wanted to make sure is that in each of these clades that there was equal spacing between the nodes, even though they're all different sizes. So if you look at these nodes, you can see that the spacing between them is pretty much equal. And then the same thing with the clades, the larger nodes, even though that these are significantly different sizes, there's equal spacing between these. So to do this, I had to do a lot of math in Alteryx, but basically what I did was I used the number of breeds that they were related to as the size of the circle. So that number represented the area. And then I calculated the diameter of each circle, so the width across, and then took a running total of all of those to get the kind of total circumference of the circle, and then added the spacing for each of them. Basically did all of that just to be able to create the size of the clad circle to get the even spacing. And then basically did the same thing for the larger clad nodes, so I could evenly space them around this faint outer circle here. Again, I won't go into too much detail, but it was just a bunch of calculations that I did before getting into Tableau. Probably could have done them with table calculations in Tableau, but with all of the other complex calcs for this viz, I kind of gave myself a break and just put them right in the data source. And then the rest of the steps of the flow were basically taking this like base data model that I built and shaping it and aggregating it in different ways to support each of the different chart elements in the viz, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the next few slides. But what essentially I ended up with was like 8 distinct data sets at the level of aggregation with the detail and calculations that I needed. And then all of those were stacked on top of each other, so union together. So I had one massive data set that I could use to draw all of these different things. For the viz, I did have to do a lot of densification, and I used a technique I like to call stacked densification. I don't know if there's a real term for this, but that's just what I call it. But my densification table looks something like this. So I had 8 different sections or types, one for each of the chart elements. Again, I'll talk about those in a few minutes. And for each of those chart elements, I had a different number of points that I could use to draw those elements. So for the smaller like breed nodes, that was the circle breed type, I had 25 points, 1 through 25. For the larger clad nodes, I had 50 points. For that large outer circle, I had 100 points. For the Bezier curves, I had 100 points, and so on. So after the data modeling, my base data source had data for these 8 different chart types. My densification table had data for these 8 different chart types. So I joined those together on type, and I ended up with all the data I needed and all the points I needed to draw all of these different parts of the chart. I just want to point out that that was not a sequential process whatsoever. So, I didn't build this entire data model before I started working in Tableau. I built that kind of base model that I knew I would need, but as I started adding different elements to the visualization, I was coming back to my workflow and adjusting and adding to support these different pieces. So there was a ton of back and forth between the data model and the viz. And so these are the different chart elements that I mentioned. So you'll notice there are 8 different elements here, and those line up with the 8 different types from the data model and from my data source. So we have these smaller breed nodes, we have these large clad nodes, we have this faint outer circle that connects all the clad nodes, we have this faint inner circle, we have all these curved lines connecting all the nodes, we have this tiny diamond that you can't really see, but that just shows which breed is selected. We have these small circles in the interior that go on this inner circle, and then these lines that connect these small interior circles with the large clad nodes. So if we go back to the visualization, you can see all of these different elements here in the viz. So we have the breed nodes, the clad nodes, this faint outer circle, faint inner circle, the lines connecting them, the curved lines. So really this is kind of 8 different mini vizes that are brought together into one chart. So I'm not going to go into detail on how each of the elements was built. There are just way too many calculations there. But if you are interested in learning how to build these types of visual elements in Tableau, I'd recommend checking out the blog that I share with my wife, Jackie, Do More with Data. There are a ton of fun how-tos on there. But specifically for these techniques, you can check out the Fun with Curves in Tableau series. So part 1 covers how to draw circles in Tableau and even how to make a circle of circles, which is used a few times within this visualization. And then part 2 covers how to draw the Bezier curves, so those curved lines in the chord chart that connect the different nodes. All right. So the way that I set up my data source, I could have built this entire visualization in one sheet, but I ended up splitting it into a few different sheets, mainly because of how I wanted to layer the different elements. So you can see this is the bottom layer here. It has that outer circle, the inner circle, those kind of interior nodes, and then the lines that are connecting them. So we have some lines here, and then these circles are polygons. So kind of combining lines and polygons in the same view. And the way that I did this, and it's the way that I build most of my stuff on Tableau Public, is I build these kind of composite calculations that I use to display different elements together. So using some of the techniques in those blog posts, I essentially calculated the X and Y coordinates for every mark I needed in every one of those vizzes. So I had basically 8 different sets of coordinates to build each of those 8 different chart elements. And then to bring them all together, they're just simple case statements. So based on that type field that you saw in the densification table in my data, for each type, it's just going to return the appropriate X calculation. So it's called final X line. So I have 5 line elements. And then I do the same thing for my polygons. These are the 3 polygon elements for a total of 8. And then there is a shared Y axis. So this is going to have all 8 of them. Now, because we have this shared value, this shared Y-axis, we can create a dual axis chart and make one of the chart types a line and the other chart type a polygon, and then combine all of it together in the same view. But the reason I didn't build the whole chart in the same view is that, you know, many of these views or layers are combining lines and polygons. And when you have a dual axis chart, you have to pick one of them to go on top. But I didn't want all of the line elements to be in front of all the polygon elements, and I didn't want all the polygons to be in front of all of the lines. Like, I really wanted to control how those 8 different elements were stacked. You know, I probably could have done that with map layers. To be honest, I haven't really experimented much with those. So what I ended up doing was taking these 8 different chart types and breaking them into 4 different layers. So here's that base layer, that's layer number 1. Then I have my background layer. This one has all of the nodes. So it has the breed nodes and the cloud nodes. Then I have my foreground layer. So this one has all of the curved lines and also has all of the nodes for all of the related breeds, but colored with more saturation, so they really stick out. And you might notice that any of the nodes that are included here are excluded from the background. So you can see all of these ones that are here are being excluded here. The reason I did that is that I've noticed in Tableau Public, when you have marks that are identical in size, shape, and position, and they're basically sharing the same space, they're stacked on top of each other, they end up getting this weird kind of blurry, jagged effect that looks a little bit strange. So to get around that, making sure that I'm only including the node in one layer or the other and not stacking them directly on top of each other. The next layer is the overlay, which appears to be blank, but I assure you it's not. After stacking those other 3 layers, there wasn't any way for the user to select all of the breeds, because at that point, this was the top layer. We're filtering out all of these other nodes. So I wanted a way for the user to be able to click on the chart to select a node. So this one has all of the nodes. I just brought the opacity down to 0, so they're kind of invisible. It also has the tooltips. And this layer also has that little diamond to show which breed is selected. That diamond, though, is on a different axis, so I can show that one with full opacity and kind of hide all the other ones. So if I was to change this to black, you would see just that diamond there. And then there was one final layer that was built in Figma that had all the labels. Hoping one day we'll be able to rotate text in Tableau, but until then I typically use either Figma or PowerPoint for any labels that need to be rotated, and then bring that into Tableau as an image. And kind of the last step in here, besides some formatting and adding text, was just to add the interactivity. So I'm using a parameter for the breed selection, so you can select it straight from here, and then just a simple parameter action And when you click on any of these nodes, it's just going to pass that read to this parameter. And then also using that filter action trick that gets rid of the default highlighting. So when you click node, all the other ones don't get that weird kind of grid thing that happens. But yeah, so I think that is about it for this viz. Please reach out and connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn, or follow me on Tableau Public. And happy to answer questions if there are any. So I wasn't able to keep an eye on the chat.
Thank you. That was brilliant. I love that. I love seeing your process from start to finish. There are a couple of questions come through. One from Eric. Let me find it. What was the most surprising dog data that you learned during this project?
So to be honest, I didn't spend a lot of time looking at the data. I spent most of the building. Yeah, I don't know. I would say go in there, explore on your own, find your own surprising relationships.
It's a challenge now. Everyone to find their. There was another one from Bianca. I think you answered it. She asked about the 8 elements. Did you use map players? But you said you went down the route of separate sheets. I guess is that just your preferred method?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't used map layers yet. It's been on my to-do list for a while, but eventually I got around to it. But yeah, for now, I just, I bring things together on the same sheet as much as possible. In this one, I had to do a couple of different layers just because how I wanted to layer the different elements.
Yeah. Probably
Could have done it with map layers, but I got to figure out how to do that.
It was complicated enough probably as it was. How long did it take you? Do you track that? Or would you be able to guess?
I mean, I don't really track it. Once I finally landed on the idea and I knew what I needed to build, it was probably only a couple of days, but I probably spent a few weeks with the data, trying out different things and figuring out what exactly I wanted to do.
Well, it's pretty quick once you got it in your head. Then are you someone who has to go at it and just get it done? You can't leave it alone.
Oh yeah, once I start working on something, it's like all I can think about. I'll write on it.
Brilliant. You mentioned you struggle for inspiration, or you have gaps between what you want to work on. How long can it take before you get an idea to work on? What's your longest stint?
Yeah, I mean, the longest was probably 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
But there's other times where I'll be working on a viz and I already know what I want to build next. I don't know. It's just it seems to strike randomly, but I definitely don't have a backlog of ideas that a lot of people seem to have.
I do. It doesn't help me do them, but I had another question. So obviously you've got 10 visitor days. Do you know when you're going to get one? Do you get a feeling, or do you not think about that? You just do what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I just do what I want to do. A lot of times I know it won't be eligible just because if I use, certain images or certain topics. But yeah, I think, sometimes you can kind of tell just the way people react to the viz, whether or not it's going to be selected.
Yeah, I was surprised because Rubik's Cube, that didn't get visitor day, did it? Or did it?
No, that didn't. But there's not. It's not really a data visualization. It's just
but it was cool.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Has anyone else got any questions on the chat? I'll just have another quick check to see if anything's come up. Apparently you need to speak to Jack. He can tell you about map players. I think that's true. No, can't see any other questions in there. But I guess as you say, Brian, there's your Twitter and your LinkedIn, so I'm sure, not to inundate you, but I'm sure you'd respond if someone has a question. But
absolutely.
No, thank you very much again for going through that. I love all your stuff. So as I said in the chat, I think pretty much everything you do could probably end up a visit a day, but there's probably a rule against putting you down too many times. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you'll stop sharing your screen, we'll get on to the swag drawing. All right, everybody. That was awesome. Let me share my screen. And Here we go. Got it all lined up. Everybody's name is on the wheel. So we have 2 prizes. We were saying we were doing $50 gift certificates. That still has not gone through with the Salesforce yet. So it may be just $50 worth of swag from the Tableau store. But regardless, if you win, email tablowpublictug@gmail.com and we will get you lined up. And for previous winners, if you're on, I still have your name and we'll get that done. So let's pick a winner. All right, first up, Ray Givler. Hope I said that right. Congratulations, Ray. As I said, send an email to tableau.public.tug@gmail.com and I will send you a link to fill out some more information. All right, and one more. We've got, oh, Jack, so close. But Jamie Baker is the winner. And I hope she got her audio fixed and got back with us. But anyway, those are our 2 winners. So thank you all for joining. Let's go have a look at what's up next. So this month's news roundup, if you haven't heard about it, is Data Plus Movies. There is a starter kit available that I will post in the chat that will get you up and running with it. If you complete the challenge, you will get a free Data Plus Movies t-shirt. I'm going to bet they're going to have 1,000 of those made. I can't imagine that this is not going to be a really well sorted out challenge. So there, like I said, there's the data set, there's a starter kit, and then Andy Codgreave has done a recording on his channel, so you can go learn how to do it. And they actually have several vizzes out there. Jessica Moon has one of them. And go check out what has already been done as a Kickstarter if you need some inspiration. And then finally, the Viz collab effort that Jessica spoke about is kicking off again. So go to Viz collab, well, Nicole Klassen, and I'm going to post this in the link too because it's got numbers on it. So that is on her Medium channel, and you can learn all about the Viz collab and get paired up with somebody awesome to collaborate with. All right, and then our next TUG meeting is going to be in January, on January 11th. Roy is going to tell us about his Career Pathmakers initiative in our community spotlight. Kevin Wee will join us and present his Higher Education Institutes with data analytics. And Victor will present his Travel Through My Digital Footprint Viz. So he's going to share some insights into his digital online footprint with a fingerprint image. So I'm anxious to see that. I think it'll be really awesome. And then finally, if you want to have your own Viz of the Day, make sure you build something that is timely and topical, spotlights the diverse Tableau community, includes a novel chart type or Tableau trick like we saw today. It communicates a key insight or story like the climate change one did, or highlights some new features in Tableau, which there are several now that 2023.3 is out. And then most important of all, it is visually stunning. And finally, down here at the bottom, our Tableau Viz of the Day nomination form. If you have a favorite Viz of the Day that you would like to see us discuss at a TUG, please use that link that I just posted into the chat, and we will have a look at it and hopefully have it on one day. And shameless self-promotion is accepted. So get on there and let us know what vizzes you like and would like to see. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate everybody coming and look forward to seeing you in January.